Beyond the Basics is back. I'm Fatheads Pro Jacob Wheeler, and I want to talk to you about one of my favorite topwater baits, the Rapala X-Rap Prop. There's about 3 different ways that I throw this bait. Number 1, of course, the bluegill bed pattern. Fishing around cruising bass, up shallow, after the spawn. It's just a great way to catch a lot of big bass. It actually helped me win the Forrest Wood Cup last year. Second, I use it around spawning bass. You know, I'll actually throw this bait out there in the holes or where I think there's a bass spawning, and I'll twitch it and allow it just to sit there, and those fish a lot of times will come up. Last is a lot of times in the fall when those fish are schooling, I'll use more of the shad color baits, something just a little bit different. They don't see a lot of prop baits in the fall, and I think you get a lot more bites just because of that. So now let's talk about colors. Since we're down in Florida, let's start off with gold olive. This bait really resembles a golden shiner so well. So whether you're on the outside edge fishing, you know, in the middle of the summer catching these bass, or you're up in where the bass are spawning, they just can't stand a golden shiner around them, and they're always going to eat that. So great color in Florida. Second is yellow perch. This is my absolute favorite. Even though it's called yellow perch, it's my favorite bluegill bed fishing bait. It has a blue glimmer belly, has that orange, a little bit of orange, and it just does a great job of that. 3 hooks. All the X-Rap props come with a feather, just for the fact that the fish don't really want to commit to it. They'll come up and they'll grab that back feather, and you'll have a chance of getting them in. So that yellow perch color does a great job. Helped me win the Forrest Wood Cup, and it's definitely probably my favorite topwater bait. Last but not least is pearl gray shiner. I throw it when a lot of guys are throwing pop-Rs and skitter walks. I like to throw this prop bait because it's something just a tad bit different. You get a few more bites because the fish don't see it. It's just something about it. It does a great job of resembling a shad, and they definitely like it. The line I use is 17-pound Suffix Elite, monofilament. I don't throw 4-carbon, obviously, because it sinks. And a lot of guys throw braid, but I really don't like to throw braid on a prop bait because I feel like it wraps up into the prop a little bit more. Some guys will do that, but for me, I feel like I'll actually let those fish have it a little bit. Monofilament actually also stretches a little bit more, and that allows the fish to get it a little bit easier. And especially guys that are afraid of, you know, they always hook the fish, they see the fish blow up on it, and you automatically want to jerk. It gives them a little bit more time to get it, and a lot of times I feel like that's just enough time, that split second is enough time for those fish to get it, and I get it a little bit better than they will with braid. The reason this bait is so good is because it actually turns when you jerk it. You know, it's not a real violent walk, but it'll actually turn a little bit when you're twitching that bait hard. And that is really important in a prop bait. You know, a lot of other prop baits won't do that. You know, the one thing about prop baits is they've always been light for years. They're real light, they're hard to cast, they twist up with your line, and this bait doesn't do any of that. It's a heavier bait. Your line doesn't twist around the props, at least for me it has not at all. And it's just a great bait with good hooks, and it's easy to fish. And so, I mean, whether you're 6 years old and a beginner, or you're an avid fisherman and you fish professionally, it's a great bait. You know, when I'm down here in Florida throwing a prop bait, one thing that I always look for is these hay fields, these scattered hay fields. But when I'm pitching a prop bait, I'm actually pitching it into these holes. These bass are actually spawning in the holes because there's obviously not as much vegetation and they can fan a bed out. And so what I'll do is I'll actually pitch this bait out into the holes. And instead of throwing it and twitching it fast, I'm actually going to twitch it slow because these bass are spawning, and the males are normally in the holes and the females will be on that edge. And I'm trying to catch that big one that's in there. So your strike zone's a lot smaller. So you twitch it a couple times and you let it sit there, and that's how it's done. Oh, he's in there. Dang that. I guess that's how it's done. We need a little bit bigger fish to get going, but that's a general rule. Pitch it in the holes and you'll catch some fish for sure. You know, one thing that I really like about the X-Rap Prop is, you know, with normal prop baits, what happens, a lot of times you'll get your line caught up in the prop, or your line will twist because the actual props are actually rotating and actually causing line twist. Well, with this bait, it does not do that. So for whatever reason, it don't have that problem, and that's a good problem not to have. Those are the 2 main cadences, really. Twitch, twitch, twitch. You know, I will do some different stuff when I'm fishing like bluegill beds. I'll actually throw that bait out there. If they're deeper and the fish are actually setting up deeper, then I'll actually slow it down to sort of draw them up. And sort of once I see them, it's actually a visual thing. When you're fishing bluegill beds for bass, it's actually a visual deal. You're actually looking at the bluegill and you're looking at the bass. Normally you see the bass, but occasionally they'll actually be sitting off of the bed. And that's when I'll throw it out there off the bed just a tad bit and try to bring them up. And I'll slow it down. I'll go twitch, twitch, and I'll slow those pauses down. And that'll actually bring those fish up from 4, 5, 6, even 7 or 8 feet, and let them come up. And once I see them come up, I can actually play with my bait and snap it harder, make it twitch a little bit, and that can make those fish commit. A little bit of wind, a little bit of chop. You know what I'm looking for throughout the day? A lot of times when it's sunny outside, you're always looking for a little bit of chop, a little bit of something to disturb the top of the water. This is actually perfect. You know, the sun's getting up a little bit. It's about 10 o'clock. You know, normally people think put the top waters down. But no, I think this is perfect what I'm looking for. When they're gonna eat a topwater bait throughout the day, you always need just something to break up that surface. And especially, you know, down here, anytime you have clear water. And that's what I'll look for. When it gets a little bit too choppy is normally when they start rolling. Those little, they get a half a foot or they just get a little bit too large or almost to a foot waves. That's when I'll stop throwing that and you'll start going to more of a spinner bait or something like that. But for me, this is perfect. It breaks up the surface and lets those fish really commit. They just can't stand, like when those fish are on beds, they just can't stand that prop bait coming over their heads. It's just something about how it makes all that disturbance and it sits right over their head. It just, because the thing is with the prop bait, it doesn't move that much. It'll, when you jerk it, it'll actually stay in place almost as long as you're not pulling it too much. You're actually just twitching that bait and it actually just sit there and just making all this disturbance that they just can't stand it. They'll come up and eat it. You know, the twin blades is very, very important because it actually, you know, a single prop bait or single bladed prop bait, it's sort of like a more of a subtle thing. It's more of like a, you know, you know what I mean, sort of, it just doesn't make a lot of commotion. And this, a double bladed prop bait, what it does is it creates a lot of commotion. Hey, they're gonna eat it, it's just how it is. They're actually spawning in the center of the bow cut. People run through there and they're spawning right in the middle of the bow cut. And you're just like, what the heck? This one. And that's how you do it, just like that. You know, I like a topwater bait with 3 hooks on it because if he does slap at it, if he gets the feather, then I'll have a chance of getting him on the, you know, basically on the side of his cheek or something like that, and it allows for better hookups and actually better, you know, basically land ratio. It's all right. We're gonna catch a bigger one than that. But that's what that's what a lot of these in these boat cuts. A little better one. Yes. Choked it. And that's how you do it right there. X-Rap Prop. Hopefully these tips will help you catch more and bigger bass back home this season. I'm Forrest Wood Cup champion Jacob Wheeler, and this is Beyond the Basics.